Hi, my name is Evis, and I use this remove animation setting on my Android phone and on other devices as well. And I need it because, if I encounter certain kinds of movements like parallax scrolling or these horizontally scrolled elements, often called as marquees, based on the marquee HTML element, which is, by the way, deprecated already, or other similar animations, I start feeling physically sick. And usually this remove animation setting, most of the apps respect that. But I actually came across with this new modifier, or new and new. It was added something like a year ago, called basicMarquee, which adds this like horizontal scrolling to a text that doesn't fit the horizontal space like allocated for it. So if it's longer than the horizontal space available, it starts scrolling. And the bad news is that it does not respect the remove animation setting. So I decided to try out some things to create a bit more safer marquee, in a sense that it actually respects the remove animation setting. So in this video, I will share you one way to make the marquee element more accessible for those users who use this remove animations setting. As you can see in the phone screen, here the remove animation setting is on. And I have a small preview that I'm going to run in the app screen. It's text. This says girls just want to have fundamental human rights. And when the preview opened in the emulator, well, it started scrolling. As you could see, the remove animation setting was on, and we are still seeing this movement there. So it's not working in a way that at least I, as a user of that setting, would expect. So what can we do? We can check if the user has this remove animation setting on, and if it is, then we can not show the basic marquee and its movement. And if it's not on, then we can just show the basic marquee. So many of the accessibility APIs and different assistive technologies, like checking if they are available or if they are in use, it's somewhat straightforward. But for this setting, it's not. Like, there is no check if remove animations is on type of setting. But luckily, we can use the animator duration scale for that. What the remove animation setting essentially does is that it sets this animator duration scale to 0, so that the animations are run for 0 seconds. So that's what we can do. And what we want to do here is that once we know if the setting is on or if it's off, then we are using that as a condition for the modifier, and we are going to create a custom modifier for that. There are different ways and different places where we could store the value if the remove animation setting is on, but in this example, I decided to use CompositionLocal, and more specifically a custom CompositionLocal for this, because it's a great way of passing exactly this kind of data down that should be available for different components in the component tree without the need of prop drilling, so passing it down from the top to each of the child components. I have this local remove animations file here, and that's where we are going to create the actual CompositionLocal called local remove animations. This could be, for example, local accessibility settings or something like that if we had more of these here, but for the sake of example, I just decided to use a simple enough name here. And what we want to do here is that we want to first define a data class called RemoveAnimations, which holds the information about the remove animations, and then we are actually creating the local remove animations. So let's start with the data class RemoveAnimations. What we are doing here. First, we define this data class called RemoveAnimations, and it takes in one parameter called context. That's something that we need later in the code. And then we define one variable inside of it called enabled, and that's type of Boolean. And then we define a getter for it, where we use try catch to first try to check if we can get the animator duration scale value from settings with settings global get float. We need to pass in the content resolver, which we get from the context. So that's why we needed the context there. And then as the name, we define the animator duration scale constant. And then we set the default value as 1 if it has never been set. And then we have this catch block here, because if this setting is not found on the phone, if it's, for example, old enough, then there would be a crash, but we actually just want to set the default value here, so that's why we set it to 1. And then we check if the value from the try catch block is 0. And if it's 0, then remove animations is enabled. And if it's not, then it's not. And then we define this local remove animations. We can define it as static composition local instead of composition local. And this is actually more performant, and because the data is not likely to change often, we can use the static composition local. In fact, we need to restart the app to get the changed value if we are updating it in the settings. At least I haven't found a way to listen to those changes in the global settings. So if you have some ideas on that, I'm really happy to hear. Now we have everything so that we can actually use this value, or this, like, if remove animations is enabled. So yeah, here we have Marquee screen, which is, it's just a simple screen for the sake of example. So here we first start by providing the composition local. So we wrap this screen contents, and if this wasn't like app, or like the whole app and not just one preview of things, you would do this in the, for example, the main activity, or like wherever you are defining the topmost component in the app. But in this case, because if it's an example, we are just doing it on the like component level. So yeah, I'm wrapping the scaffold with compositionLocal provider. Oh yeah, actually we need this context here, so I'm storing the value from the local context current into a variable, and then passing it in to the compositionLocal provider. And the value here is that LocalRemoveAnimations provides these remove animations, and then I'm passing in the context here. So yeah, now we are providing this value, and then we can actually use it. So we define a modifier as an extension function and call it safeMarquee. And it returns a modifier. It's a composable because we want to be able to use the compositionLocal within the modifier. Okay, so first of all, we store the animations removed value. We get it from remove animations current. And then we check if the animations are removed. And if they are, then we just return this. So the modifier chain that comes before this one. And then if it's not, like if the animations are not removed, then we return this and then basicMarquee. Oh yeah, I have to define the enabled here. Oh, and I actually need to return something. So yeah, we have the modifier here, and now we can actually use it. And I'm just gonna switch the basic marquee here to safeMarquee, and let's test it. I'm gonna run the preview. Okay, great. So now the text actually flows on 2 lines because, well, it's too long to be like on 1 line. Then now it flows on 2 lines, so it's still readable for someone who doesn't have the animations on. Then let's change the, well, let's remove the remove animations. And then I'm gonna show you that, okay, now like nothing happens on our app because, well, there is no way to observe the changes. So I need to rerun the preview. Now, as you can see, the marquee or the animation works there and it's on 1 line. So with these changes, we've already increased the accessibility of this marquee, or like the basic marquee modifier. So yeah, hey, in this video, we've looked into how to make this basic marquee modifier a bit more accessible for those who use the remove animation setting to make it actually respect that setting. So yeah, if you have any questions or anything, let me know in the comments.